last time I showed you a quick little peek into the images I captured for my latest fine art piece. And today, like I told you, I'm going to show you how I built this latest piece. So to begin with, you're looking at my base image, which is where I always start. I always start with the picture that I feel is the most strong, that I can easily build off of. So this was the image I chose, and you'll see that this is gonna change, but this is where I started. I liked the angle. I felt like it was a good place for having a waterline hit me easily. I liked the posture. So this is where I started. You'll see in the next layer, I pulled everything down, I added more sky, and then I tried to kind of eliminate this horizon line because our goal is to create realism as much as possible, and you wouldn't have this underwater. The next layer, you're gonna see literally nothing changed, and the reason for that is because the next layer I started playing, and I always like to have a base layer to go back to just in case I mess up. So this was my next layer. Basically what I did was I copied the layer and I pulled it down because I'm short-waisted and I needed a little more length in my torso to make this image easier to create. So that's where that came in. This layer tries to soften that horrible edge that I have going on here with my chest and the little wrinkle in the back. So I just tried to fix that a little bit. You'll also see that I did some blurring here. So I tried to eliminate the really hard line of my dress and legs in the sand because I wanted it to feel like they butted right up against me. All right, now this is an entirely new picture. Everything you had seen was the same image, just copied and blended and tweaked. This is a whole new one. So what I did here was I eliminated that horizon line that would have been above the surface by adding in more sand below. So that's what this is. The next thing I did was I added the water. But before I show you that, I need to explain that I decided I didn't like this after the fact and everything changed. So you're gonna see a weird line cut through me with the water, so bear with me. There are a bunch of water layers and there is a reason for that, and we will get to that. So I'm gonna just load them up one at a time and show you how it all came together. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're seeing that weird cut through me, and I'm gonna fix that for you in a second here. So like I said, I decided I wanted a different posture. I also wanted a different sky. So I threw in a stormier sky, and then I brought in this body and this head. Okay, so you can see I decided I didn't want the hand up. I'll explain some of that later. Let's go back and look at these water layers. So here's the first one. You'll see that it's really just the horizon line, which honestly means that I did not add this in first. I added this in later, but it needed to be underneath other things. The other thing you're going to see is that this is on a blend mode of hard light, and the opacity was brought down a little bit as well as the saturation. My second water layer, you're seeing it's the above the water and a little bit below. And this is on a normal blending mode with the opacity at 100%. This is because you wouldn't be able to see through this choppy water, and I liked some of this water light ray thing going on here, so I wanted to keep that. So that's why this is not in a different blend mode. I forgot that there's this one down here. This is just underneath the water. It is on hard light because if you switch to normal, you can't see through it quite as well. It's a little murkier than I would like. I didn't like how strong these light rays were. So that's why I put this on hard light. It gave me the effect I wanted, kept keeping it kind of dark and still giving me a crisp line on my body. Okay, so that is our water. The other thing that I wanted to do was I needed to brighten my body up. So you'll see that right here. I just used a level layers for that. To create some more realism, there should be a water break here. There's no way the water would be this choppy but not have a water break on my body. So I started with this water break. Whoops. nope, I started with this water break. And it felt like too much of a splash. So I did my thing where I copied this layer and played so I had it to go back to if I felt like I goofed. And I created this water break, which is a little more subtle. Tried to blend it into the water line with these lighter spots in the water as much as possible. I also played with the hue and saturation on this because it was very blue, and I didn't want it to be quite that blue. And it was very bright, and I didn't want it to be that bright. I added a dodge and burn layer here to darken things down because it just didn't feel realistic. There felt like there needed to be more shadow there, so that's what that was for. And my hair seemed too flat for as tumultuous as the scenery appeared to be, so I added in more hair. Alright, then I felt like there needed to be more going on underneath, so I added 2 big boulders. There's one on the left, one on the right. As busy as up here is, I felt like there needed to be some movement underneath, so I added some bubbles. And then the last thing I did was I added some chains, and this is because the idea for this piece is waiting, and I wanted to capture the idea of feeling chained to a moment, to an idea, to a spot in time, because when you're waiting, you often feel stuck. You don't know if you're ever going to move forward. You really don't want to move backwards, so you're just rooted to this one point in time. And that's how I put together this piece. Now you guys know what I always do is I save that as a PSD file and then also save it as a flattened JPEG to do my special retouching. So that's what we're looking at here. I did my standard run of my action set where you can see it brightened everything up and made everything a little more vibrant, which is fine because we have more styles that are going to be applied. I made sure that I stayed brighter than the scenery around me, and I did my subtle little retouch on my skin. I added a little light to my nose because it was weirdly, oddly darker than everything else, so I wanted to fix that a little bit. I added my color balance layer that warmed everything up a little bit because it was very, very blue, and a levels layer which pumped up my darks and my lights. I did one more levels layer that just affected me, and then I did, you know how much I love my directional light vignettes. So here's one that darkened everything around me, and then 2 that darkened again everything around me, making it feel like this light spot in the sky was really putting light on me. I did a 3rd one, but I decided ultimately that that was unnecessary, so I left that alone. And even though a lot of my actions pop up the contrast, I tend to put a mild matte finish on it. So that's what you're seeing here is I kind of applied that matte finish a little bit. I did my warm vignette, my butternut one, and then I've been finishing up all of my fine art piece with 2 texture overlays. My favorite texture overlays are from Box Drops by SJP, and I'll include that link in the description box below. So the first one is this, it's kind of like a stone finish. It's a little subtle, but it adds this kind of, I don't know what you would call it. I just like this subtle texture. I brushed it off of me, but left it on everything else. And the last texture I applied was more of a brush stroke that kind of darkened everything down again. I did take the hue and saturation all the way down on both of the overlays because I liked the color tone I came up with. I didn't want the colors of the overlays to affect this particular image because one was very red and one was very yellow, so the overall colors would have shifted dramatically without it. I mean, you can see just by eliminating that how very red it all gets, and by eliminating this one it gets a little bit more yellow. So that's how I created this piece. I know I kind of walked through that really fast, but there were a lot of layers and I wanted to make sure I got through all of it. If you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Please leave them in the comments below. If there's anything you would like me to do in the future, I would love to hear about that too, so leave me a comment about that as well. I hope you guys found this fun and interesting, and I will see you guys hopefully again real soon. Thanks. Bye.